Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going right to the source. I mean, the absolute core of human performance.
We are, yeah. We're heading into the body's real engine room, the muscular system.
Exactly. So if you've been focused on, analyzing movement from the outside, just watching it happen, this is where we go inward.
It is. We're looking at that foundational link between how a muscle is built and the sheer force it can generate. Without this, you're really just guessing at how performance works.
Absolutely. And the material you shared, it really centers on this constant balancing act the body does between efficiency and power.
Right.
So to get our heads around that, we've broken this down. First, we have to master the 3 different ways a muscle can contract, the literal mechanics of it.
And second, we've got to analyze the 3 distinct muscle fiber types. We've got slow oxidative, fast oxidative glycolytic, and fast glycolytic.
The engine components.
The components, yeah. They dictate whether you're built for a marathon or, a 5-second sprint. They decide everything: speed, power, endurance.
So for you listening, mastering this is the key. It's what unlocks that next level of movement analysis. It lets you go from just watching an athlete to applying real science to why they succeed.
Or even why they might get injured.
That's our mission today, to give you that insight.
So where should we start?
Let's jump right into the mechanics of tension. The research groups muscle activity into 3 core types. Now, 2 of them get lumped together under isotonic. That's when there's movement. And then there's the static one, isometric.
Let's start with isometric. It's the simplest to picture. An isometric contraction is when you're creating tension, the muscle is firing like crazy, but its length doesn't change.
So no movement at the joint.
No movement at all. Think about pushing against a solid brick wall. You're generating massive force, but the wall isn't going anywhere. Or holding a plank.
Ah, okay. The plank is a perfect example. It's like a tug of war where nobody wins, but the rope is under maximum tension.
Exactly. It's force without any displacement.
Okay, so that's isometric. Now, isotonic means the muscle length does change, and we get movement. This is where we get into those common terms people mix up.
And this is where the conversation gets, much deeper. The first type, the most common, is concentric.
Right.
That's where the muscle shortens while it produces tension. So if you're curling a dumbbell, your biceps is shortening as it lifts the weight.
That's the classic definition of lifting. It's an acceleration.
It's an acceleration action, precisely. But for any kind of high-level analysis, the real focus has to be on the second type, eccentric.
Eccentric, this is where the muscle is actually lengthening.
While still producing tension, yes.
And this is so counterintuitive. Most people think working hard means shortening the muscle. But that eccentric phase where you're kind of losing ground, that's often the hardest part of a lift.
It is, and arguably the most important, especially for joint health. Eccentric contractions are your body's dynamic brakes.
Brakes? I like that.
Yeah, when you're lowering a heavy box or just resisting gravity, your muscles are working eccentrically to slow that movement down.
So sinking into the bottom of a squat.
Perfect example. Your quads and glutes are working overtime, lengthening under all that tension, just to stop you from collapsing to the floor.
And there's a really practical connection here, right? Eccentric work is what drives 2 huge things in sports phys. First, muscle growth hypertrophy, and second, that stiffness you feel the next day. Delayed onset muscle soreness, or DOMS. It's overwhelmingly caused by those eccentric demands.
That structural damage is exactly why it's so effective for growth. You're putting an incredible stress on the muscle fibers as they try to resist being stretched. But there's another layer of nuance here.
Right.
The research highlights a point that trips up a lot of people starting out. It's called the agonist paradox.
Hold on, the agonist paradox. That sounds like a contradiction. Say that again and explain what that actually means.
The paradox is this. During an eccentric contraction, the agonist muscle, so the main working muscle, is actually controlling a different movement than its normal concentric job.
It's working, but it's resisting the motion of its opposite muscle.
He's got it.
Wow. Okay. That detail is huge for injury analysis. Because if the muscle is the agonist, but it's controlling a movement it doesn't normally create, that totally changes how you assess risk.
It does.
Give us a concrete example. This feels central.
Okay, let's take the hamstrings. Specifically, the biceps femoris. Concentrically, when it shortens, its main job is knee flexion.
Bending the knee, like kicking your heel back.
Exactly. You're creating that motion. But when it works eccentrically, the biceps femoris is under massive tension to control the opposite movement. knee extension.
So when the knee is straightening out.
Right. When you're putting your foot down to land from a jump, it's acting as a brake for the lower leg's forward swing. The knee is extending, but the biceps femoris is the agonist because it's actively resisting that extension to keep it controlled and safe.
So if a sprinter tears their hamstring, they're not tearing it while they're trying to bend their knee.
Unlikely.
They're tearing it during a high-speed knee extension that the hamstring is failing to break. That just completely changes how you design a prevention program.
Precisely. You have to train the muscle to resist lengthening, not just to shorten forcefully. That one distinction, concentric acceleration versus eccentric deceleration, that's the key.
The brake versus the throttle.
That's it. We have to look past simple definitions and see the muscle's real functional role.
Okay, so now we know how tension is produced and controlled. The push, the brake, the hold. Now we need to look to the machinery that actually does it. The muscle fiber types.
This is where we get into the difference between, a high-endurance engine and a drag racing sprint engine.
Love that analogy.
We basically classify these into 3 categories. They're differentiated by how fast they contract and, crucially, what kind of fuel they use.
Let's start with the long-distance specialist, the fuel-efficient model.
Those are the slow oxidative fibers, or SO fibers. Think of these as the clean-burning candle of your muscular system.
Okay.
Their whole function is built around incredibly high fatigue resistance. They contract slowly, but they can keep going for hours. Structurally, they're all about efficiency.
And what does that structure look like? What makes them so efficient?
Well, they're smaller fibers, but they are packed with mitochondria, the little power plants that use oxygen, and they have this incredibly dense network of capillaries to deliver that oxygen. They run almost entirely on oxidative metabolism.
A slow, clean, sustained burn.
Exactly. They're always on, but never explosive.
All right, next up, the middle ground, the one I think of as the capable hybrid.
That's a perfect description for the Fast Oxidative Glycolytic fibers, or FOG fibers. They really do offer the best of both worlds.
So they're fast.
They have a fast contraction speed, yeah, but they're also metabolic chameleons. They can use that efficient oxidative metabolism for endurance, but they can also flick a switch and use glycolytic metabolism when you need a sudden burst of power.
Like a hybrid car. You cruise efficiently on the engine, but then you can hit the battery for a quick burst to overtake someone.
That's a great analogy. They're perfect for sports where the pace is always changing, like soccer or basketball. More power than the SO fibers, way more endurance than the FG fibers.
Which brings us to the last one.
The final, most explosive component.
This is where that balance just tips completely away from efficiency and all in on raw power. The Fast Glycolytic, or FG fibers.
The ultimate sprint engine. Their entire function is to produce massive immediate force, and structurally they are much larger than the other 2 types.
So more room for the parts that actually contract.
More contractile proteins, exactly. And they have the fastest enzyme activity, which gives them that explosive speed, but that raw power comes at a huge cost.
Right, the rapid fatigue. Why? What's the structural reason they just, collapse so quickly?
They rely almost entirely on anaerobic or glycolytic metabolism. It doesn't need oxygen, so it's incredibly fast. It just burns through stored glycogen. But it's a really unsustainable, messy process. It produces metabolic byproducts so quickly.
The burn.
The burn, yeah. I think anyone who's tried to sprint a full 100 meters knows exactly what that glycolytic screaming burn feels like. It's basically instantaneous fatigue because the environment inside the muscle fiber becomes hostile to more contraction.
So the body has these 3 distinct engines. And it's the mix and how you recruit them that dictates your performance.
Without a doubt, if you look at the application, the difference is just stark. An elite cross-country runner needs an engine that can run for hours. Their body and often their genetics will lean heavily on those super fatigue-resistant SO fibers.
Now compare that to an Olympic weightlifter or a 100-meter sprinter.
Completely different world. That's a single maximal all-out effort. It's almost pure simultaneous recruitment of every explosive FG fiber you have. You're demanding 100% power and sacrificing 100% of your sustainability for it.
And even within a single sport like running, the recruitment changes.
Oh, absolutely. An 800-meter runner who has to hold a high speed for 2 minutes is using a much bigger proportion of those FOG hybrid fibers. That's totally different from the nearly exclusive FG recruitment of a 100-meter sprinter. The body is smart. It only recruits what it absolutely needs for the job.
This has been a fantastic look under the hood. So for you listening, as you move on to analyze more complex movements, What's the one crucial takeaway here?
It's about consolidating the knowledge. You absolutely must be able to confidently tell the difference between the two types of isotonic contraction, concentric versus eccentric, conceptually and practically.
Why is that so critical?
Because if you're analyzing a movement and you miss that the main muscle is lengthening to control deceleration, you will fundamentally misunderstand that athlete's ability to absorb power, and you'll misunderstand their injury risk.
The brake and the accelerator.
It's paramount. You have to know which one you're looking at.
So this muscular foundation, this whole deep dive, this is really the launch pad. We figured out the engine. Now this knowledge becomes the base layer for what's next. We start talking about external forces, biomechanics.
Right. Biomechanics brings in things like force, mass, weight, inertia, acceleration, and that immediately changes the conversation from what the muscle can do to what it's doing against the laws of physics.
That dynamic changes everything. It's not just the muscle firing in a vacuum anymore.
Which brings us to a final thought for you to consider. If these muscle contractions are the internal engine, how do external factors like inertia, force, and acceleration fundamentally change how those three fiber types have to be deployed to execute Newton's laws of motion in a sport?
Ooh, that's a good one. Specifically, maybe think about Newton's first law, the law of inertia.
Go on.
An object in motion stays in motion. So when an athlete needs to stop on a dime to fight that inertia, how does the nervous system have to deploy those powerful FG fibers in an eccentric way to instantly change the body's state of motion?
That complex relationship between the body's physiology and the world's physics. That's the next layer to master. You're now well equipped with the foundation.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.
For more technical deep dive, check out our other sections on revisedirect.com.